Psalm 119, verse 165 says, "Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them." It's so easy to be offended by other people, isn't it? Especially if you're in leadership, you'll understand that you can't please all of the people all of the time, but you can sure make them all mad at you. Jesus said in Matthew 11 and verse 6, "And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me." And now, for fear of offending anyone, we dilute the gospel message so that it no longer has the power to save, because we fail to talk about sin and judgment and personal responsibility. But the Bible tells us that the gospel will offend. We just need to make sure that if people are going to take offense, that it's because of the conviction brought about by the message, and not because of the wrong attitudes of the messenger. That's why the Bible tells us that we are to speak the truth in love. But it's impossible to live right in all aspects of life and not cause people to be offended. We are going to do and say things every day that will offend and hurt even the very people that we love the most. The word offense means a stumbling block. An offense is a stumbling block, something that can cause you to fall and bring about your ruin. Now, it's common for people to think that whenever there is a conflict between two people, that the offender is the one with the spiritual problem. But the person against whom the offense was committed has an even greater potential for sin. The offender may or may not have done something wrong, and if he has done something wrong, he needs to take responsibility for his wrong words or actions or attitudes, and he needs to make that right. But the person who has been offended needs to be on his guard. As Jesus has his last parting words with his disciples in the upper room just before his crucifixion, he preaches one of his most important sermons to his disciples, and he says in John 16:1, "These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended." We can be offended anywhere. We can be offended at church. Somebody might say something and we get offended. We can be offended at home. A spouse or a family member might say or do something, and we become offended. Certainly there are going to be disagreements, but the moment that disagreement turns contentious, the moment there is bitterness or hatred or anger, then you have stepped across a line that can bring all kinds of destruction to your relationships. And we can't afford to become offended, because those offenses tend to become obsessive. We're controlled by them. We're led by them. We make decisions based upon them. One person said, "They offended me too many times. I'm not going back to that church again." Or someone who says, "Who does he think he is treating me like that? I'm going to get a divorce." But God doesn't lead us by our offenses. He leads us by His Word. Psalm 119, verse 105 says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." When we're controlled by our offenses, then we are walking in the flesh and not walking in the Spirit. And if it is your desire to live the Christian life, being led and guided by the truth of God's Word, then there are decisions that you and I are going to have to make every single day. And one of those decisions is to choose not to be offended, to forgive, and not to allow ourselves to be controlled and led by our own bitterness and unforgiveness.